Welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending How to Adjudicate Instructions and Etiquette. Thank you so much for taking part of your Thursday evening, or if you're East Coast, maybe towards the afternoon, to join us today. We are really looking forward to spending some time together, actually, and seeing your faces. I think that's my biggest goal for today is like, I hope that we make some human connection. And then beyond that, I hope we clarify what's going to happen for our adjudication coming up in tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow and for the next 10 days will be our adjudication window. So we're still letting a couple people in. We'll start a couple minutes past the hour. If you are not one of our panelists today, please stay on mute unless you have a question. And then by all means, we are a small enough group that you can unmute to ask your questions. If you feel more comfortable asking questions in the chat, and then we'll read them out. Liz, would you be so kind as to monitor our chat and help make sure that we do not miss any questions that are coming in? Thank you so much. Wow, it's so good to see your faces. Hello, Lizzie. Hello. Hi, Kate. Hi, Ellen. Noel. It's good to see you. Okay, we're at 7:02. So, couple more coming in. As you can see today, we are recording. We're going to be placing this recording for your reference onto our website so that we'll be able to transmit this information to any of our judges who are not able to meet with us in person. But that being said, I am so glad that you took the time to actually come today at this time and see us live and have your questions answered. So I'm going to start with a couple of introductions, and then we'll go through the plan of today. And we're going to aim not to go past 8:30 at all. But we want to make sure to give enough time so that everyone's questions can be answered. So I'm going to start with myself as an introduction, then we'll kind of round robin around the panelists. My name is Kayla Gautereaux. I am the president of the Nats Boston chapter. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much for your engagement in our chapter. Obviously, the work that we do and the hours that we put in, really they're for our community, and we don't get compensation for the work that we do, and we do it all because we care about the work that you're doing, and we want to make your lives substantially better. So I hope that we're helping to achieve that goal through the student auditions and the other initiatives and programs that we put out. And thank you so much for your engagement. I'm going to pass it off to Liz to give a little introduction of herself.
Hi, everyone. First off, I just want to say thank you as kind of the point person on student auditions. It's amazing to me how we all come together around this activity. I think it's one of our greatest value adds for what we do for both our students and our teachers. And I think the fact that you're here is a testament to that. So thank you for being willing to judge, to volunteer, to send students if you were able to. I will share with you that we have more students than we had last year, and I think that the virtual realm has actually allowed more people to participate. Some just can't take off a full day, so we actually have about 230 who are going to be participating in some way, shape, or form, which is awesome. I'm excited to go through this in this new way with all of you, and feel free to keep using the student auditions at natsboston.org, both for you all here and those you watching later, if you have any questions as we go through the next 2 weeks or so. Great. So there's a few other members of our board who are here, and I do want to thank them because this is a group process. We've been checking repertoire and going through everything we've been receiving, and it's a labor of love, but we're very excited to do it. So Jess Cooper and Craig Jerica are both here, and I'll ask them to wave and say hello. Yeah. Hi. Hi, friends. And we have a few other board members as well. So Craig is in charge of membership, and Jess is our new community relations director, who's been doing an incredible job with gathering partnerships around the community. And you'll hear a lot more about her work coming up post auditions. And of course, we also have A.G. Mura, our secretary, Eric Anderson, our treasurer, Emily Sciar, who's come onto the board fairly recently as our digital media board member, and Kristen Murdaugh, who recently moved to Vienna but is still with us in the communications role. So Kayla, back to you.
It is my pleasure to work with these incredible board members. Really, I cannot thank you all enough for how much work and dedication you put into making this student auditions and then all of the initiatives that we do just really special and thought out. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on to introducing our special guests, and one of them you know very well, the immediate past president, Noel Smith. Noel, will you just pop off your onto the, yeah, we've got a hello, if you can see her in the gallery. Thank you so much, Noel, for joining us today. Noel will be talking to us a little bit about the JAS and CCM rubric and adjudicating that division with care. And also, I am happy to introduce Dr. Shannon Coates. If you would give us a wave, that would be great. Dr. Shannon Coates bridges the academic and indie studio role, and that's really exciting. She's very active on social media, and if you have been out there in the world, you might already know of Dr. Shannon Coates' work. So they're gonna share some resources and thoughts on effective adjudication in general, not just for a specific genre, but all encompassing what it means to be an effective adjudicator. Okay, I'm going to drop a link in the chat. This link, I hope, will serve you very well in the next coming days. This will take you to the adjudicators page on our Nats Boston website. If you want to go there with me, you can, or I will also share my screen. Here we go. This is not it. Give me 1 second. There we go. Here's the right tab. Okay, this is our adjudicators page. I'm going to make this a little bigger so it probably looks very similar to what is in front of you. So our preliminary round adjudication window is going to run from tomorrow, February 5th, that's Friday at 10 a.m. to February 15th at 11:59 p.m., which means that all of your judging needs to occur within that time frame. Our finals round concerts, we have 3 finals round concerts to accommodate our massive amounts of participants and genres. So our Jazz and CCM concert will take place on Friday, February 19th at 7. Musical theater on Saturday, February 20th at 7, and classical on Sunday, February 21st at 3 p.m. All right, let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be discussing today. So your instructions for adjudication, the first one, check, you made it. You are attending How to Adjudicate, Instructions and Etiquette. A+ is all around, 100% scores. So here's the real information you're gonna need. Tomorrow morning, you're going to receive an email with 3 things. The first thing is going to be a link to the adjudication form. This is through Google Forms. The second thing is going to be a link to a spreadsheet with your assigned video submissions. And the third thing that you're going to receive in that email is going to be your appropriate category rubric for how to adjudicate. So we're going to kind of go step by step through this, and so you know what to expect. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you what this link to the spreadsheet of your assigned video submissions is going to look like. It's going to look something like this, where you have the division of your participants. Some of you, as you know, you probably received this email, you're going to judge multiple divisions. So we'll have the divisions all in a row. And then you're going to have your participant name, their first selection, a link to their first selection that's unlisted in YouTube, their second selection with that selection's link, and then if they're in additional or higher levels of categories or divisions, then they'll have up to 5 selections. So this is what you're going to receive, is this spreadsheet. Then what you're going to receive also in your email is a link to an adjudication form that's going to look very similar to this. If you're judging classical, it will be this form. And this has the same information here as the adjudicators page here. So everyone has the same basic instructions across all genres, trying to keep it all simple for us. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a little one by one through the details, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, okay? So we're going to submit one adjudication form per participant. So per participant, even though we have multiple selections, we will only submit one form. You submit the form at the end here where it says submit. You're going to fill out, you're going to view the videos in the order that you received them in your instructions email. So again, you're going to review this spreadsheet that you're going to receive, and you're going to only open the videos and watch them in this order. So it'll go selection 1, watch it, selection 2, watch it, selection 3, 4, 5, watch it in order. Then, as you watch, you are going to fill out this form. It's as if you are judging a live audition. If you've ever judged a live audition before, you know that you're like writing comments like crazy as you watch them perform. You might need 2 devices or 2 side-by-side browser windows in order to accommodate viewing the submission and also making comments at the same time. So do what works best for you, but I ask that you probably use the same method for each participant that you view. If you don't know me, I'm a researcher, and so I believe in control. So really do try to use the same method of viewing. Like if you're going to watch your videos, make sure that you watch them all on the same device with the same headphones, with the same everything. Control as much as possible. All right. So then you're going to also, in order to control, one more parameter, we're going to ask you to set a time limit, set a timer for each participant and adhere to the audition time limit. Now, these are the audition time limits, and they're the same across genre. So if you're judging a division of juniors, you're going to be limiting your viewing time to 8 minutes. So once I click this link, I know that I'm going to start my timer. I put the link of my HDMAA video to you all if you didn't catch that one. All right, so here we go. I know that I'm going to be judging juniors. I'm going to set my timer for 8 minutes. I'm only going to view 8 minutes of an audition. Now, what if the selection 2 I only view 10 seconds of? That's fine. When the timer goes off, the timer goes off. And just like when we are in a regular audition, we have a time limit for that room in order to keep the schedule moving. Oops, excuse me. And we only view as much as we can, and we stop the singer, and then we say thank you, and we move on to the next participant. And that's the same thing that you're going to do here. So you're going to watch them in order, and you're going to stop the timer when the timer is stopped. Or you're going to stop watching when the timer is stopped. And you're only going to view that audition video once, just like you would in a live audition. You are not going to rewatch the submissions for your commentary and your scoring. So we're going to ask that you score each participant against the rubric provided in your instruction email and not against other participants. We're going to ring this bell like a million times in this conversation, because this is probably the most important part of this conversation, is not just going through each step, but really giving quality feedback and being a fair adjudicator. So again, in your email, you're going to receive a rubric, and these are also the rubrics. So they are not going to change. And if you lose your email for some reason, I hope you don't, but if you lose your rubric, they are here on the website. So your musical theater rubric is here, CCM rubric is here, and classical rubric is there. So again, we're going to score against the rubric. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Comment and score based only on what you have viewed within the audition time limit. Do not score a student lower if their submission exceeds the time limit. The time limit is not for total song time. The time limit is for how long you're going to view the submission as an adjudicator. You're going to score between 70 and 100 according to the rubric, and please do not use any decimal points scores. We're going to talk about what this means if you have not scored with our NATS rubrics before. Once you submitted, you cannot alter your comments or scores. We're going to talk about this more, but in general, please, here's a reminder to be kind, constructive, and brief, and positive. If you have any questions about this process, or if you come up with a bum link, or if something happens where somebody is missing something from their division, we have tried to go through with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that that does not happen. But of course, with how many submissions times how many videos that we received, this is a big job. So if you could help us out with finding any errors, go ahead and contact Liz at studentauditions@natsboston.org with any questions. Okay. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to...
Sorry, I can't do that.
My watch is trying to apologize to me. And I'm going to invite any questions about the process of judging. We'll be talking about the specific rubrics coming up, but any questions about the process? Go ahead and unmute or put the questions in the chat.
Kayla, I have a question. Can you choose to watch 3 minutes of one video and then 2 minutes of another? Can you actually parse it out differently, or do you have to go straight through until you're done?
That's a great question. Yes, you can. You can, just like you would in an actual audition, right? If you asked for the second selection to start at the top of the da capo, right? You can do that. Just make sure that when you stop watching, no matter what sections you watch in, that you stop watching at the audition time limit end.
I think Julie...
Sorry, Kayla. Yeah, sorry, don't want to disagree. I'm going to make a quick disagreement. We want consistency among all three judges. Mm-hmm. So if you tell, say I'm judging, I don't know, juniors classical, and you're judging juniors classical with me, and I've watched selection 1, selection 2. Now for juniors, that's not a good example because it's only 2 songs, but say a advocational, something else that's longer. If we both are watching video 1, video 2, and the timer goes off 20 seconds into video 3, then we both watch the exact same content. If we jump around, we're not watching the same content, and when we're live in an audition room, we're all watching the same content. That's so fair. I would say I appreciate that idea, and it's fun. You know, once you've submitted your score, if you just out of curiosity on a specific song want to go, oh, what's this song? I want to hear the whole song now. That's fine. That's on your own time. But I would argue that all the judges in each room have to do the exact same thing. So I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree, Kayla. Is that okay?
That's okay. And this is something that obviously, this is a great point because obviously this is a new frontier.
Yeah, and I've done it before and you guys haven't. So
that's
I understand that we've come across this at the regional level plenty of times, and the consensus was this. So I just want to make sure you guys are on the same place.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We very much appreciate that. And also, shout out to Julie for creating this form. I stole it from regional and just reformatted just slightly. So thank you very much, Julie. Okay, so we got a couple
Kayla,
of questions. Yeah.
Do you see Eric and...
So I do.
It sounds to me like, yes, we guarantee the full amount of the listening time. And Teresa, yes, we start at selection 1 and we go straight through until we hit the timer. So maybe there'll be a few seconds that's not even, but for the most part it will be.
Yeah. As long as, and I'm encouraging you from participant 1 to participant 33, you keep the same pattern of your timer so that it remains consistent across all participants that you judge.
If a kid interrupts you in the middle, just stop your timer. Yeah. So that's the thing when you're judging online that's so different, is the distractions of life. And so, you can't, if your timer is still going and you're like, oh crap, but I only got through one song, you've got to be really diligent about having your timer going and stopping when you need a pee break or whatever. But that's one thing you just have to be aware of, because it can get really easy to all of a sudden be 12 minutes in and go, oh, whoops, I was only supposed to listen to 8. And then you're like, so just, try to be as aware as you can. It's easy and hard at the same time. In some ways it's easier, but in a lot of ways it's harder. So.
Thank you so much, Julie. Yes. I think your timer is going to be your best friend. All right. So, Julie Kincheck, you asked a question about filling in the rubric online. Yes. So that Google form that I shared with you, you are going to submit one of these forms for each participant you judge. So you're going to declare what division that they're in, which that will be listed here in your spreadsheet that we give you. You're going to give you their name, the participant name, the title of their song, the comments for their song, title of the song too, comments for the song. And then if they're in a more advanced division, we have up to 5 songs. So they'll do 3 and you'll do 3. And then we have from our scoring sheet, that this might be familiar to you, our 1 through 5 of vocal tone quality, breathing and alignment, diction, musicianship, accuracy, artistry, and expression. And then overall comments, your number score. This is the only place where there's going to be you actually typing in a number. Again, no decimal points. And then you're essentially going to sign your name to this form and click submit. And once you've submitted for each individual participant, you have judged the participants. Okay. Stopping that share again. Any other question?
There's a question in the chat from Gray.
Yeah. Do we stop our timer between selections? Okay. I am not going to get into the nitty-gritty of this as long as you keep it consistent across all of your participants. So if you're fast on the draw and you're focused, you're going to start the timer, click the link, watch, click the next link, watch, click the next link, and then when the timer goes off, you're done. If you stop your timer at any point, just make sure that it's consistent across all selections. Okay? Does that answer your question, Gray?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being so detailed. I really appreciate it. All right. Okay. I do not see any more pressing questions. I am sure we are all interested in getting to kind of like the how. So here we go. I'm going to ring this bell again. We do not score against other participants in the division. We score against the rubric. And here we go. Adjudication rubrics. Musical theater and classical. I'm going to share our screen one more time. Okay, so here we are back at the adjudicators page. I'm going to start at music theater because it is our first thing on the list. And look at that. That's formatted all funky. There it is. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. Is that better? Okay. So feel free, panelists, to unmute and chime in, but here we go to just go through the X and Y axis of this rubric. Here's for music theater categories. So this applies to all of the juniors, all of the high school, all of the lower college, upper college, and what am I missing? Adult avocational and emerging professional. Those are our chapter divisions that we have created. Julie is doing just slightly different divisions at regional. So for musical theater categories, we have this idea of tone. The singer shows mastery of vocal technique required for the repertoire chosen and has the ability to make subtle changes appropriate to the style and character. Changes in registration balance are relatively smooth and even. Refer to the FAQs. I cannot tell you enough how many times I have read through the NATS National Frequently Asked Questions. It's right there on the website. If you have any questions about what they're talking about when they say mixed, belt, or legit, they actually have videos to help demonstrate what they mean. Now, we are very careful of how we choose our judges, and we have not placed anyone in a category that has not specifically expressed that they have experience teaching and operating within that category. So on this y-axis here, we have tone, breathing and alignment, language and diction, musicianship, artistry, expression, and then this is for ensemble. These are for comments only. If you recall, these are the same as these questions here: tone, breathing and alignment, diction, musicianship, artistry, and expression. And so here we score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and here's how we score our 70 through 100. At the end, we have, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. At the end, we have a number score, 70 through 100. You're basically making your average of each of these categories into one numerical score. So if they're developing in the 70 through 79, where the tone might we might describe the tone as having the singer having little mastery of the vocal technique required for their chosen selections. Advanced would be some mastery. Accomplished would be a lot of mastery. And this goes across each category. I encourage you to read these in detail before pressing play on any of your video submissions. And here I am ringing this bell again. Okay, here it is. We are judging based off of the rubric of our standard in our own head, not based off of the other participants in the division. We're not saying, oh, I'm going to score this singer higher because they sound better to me than this other singer, right? Or they sound not as developed as this other singer in the division. Because once you submit, you cannot go back and alter your scores. So we really need to be very diligent in having a clear vision in our head. And even if it doesn't come true on the average for the division that you listen to, you keeping that standard the same across all the participants in the division will make it so that judging is fair. That's our musical theater. I have a number of teachers in here, especially Noel, who has a lot of experience judging musical theater categories. Noel, are there any major pitfalls that we need to be aware of when talking about this rubric or reading through the standards?
No, but I think we also have to keep in mind with musical theater that you're looking at the vocals, but you're also looking at the story and the characters. And are they in their storytelling? So in language and diction, it's also the diction of the character in the story. If they're doing, if their tone isn't pure, but they're doing a contemporary mix pop from something that's a new musical, their tone isn't going to be the classic tone that we're thinking of. So we just have to put it in the context of the songs that they're singing, right?
That's very fair. Thank you, Noel. Any questions about this rubric before we move on?
Kayla, I just want to make clear, it's Julie again.
Yeah.
I just want to make clear that as the judges are looking at this, if you're assigned juniors, don't imagine, I mean, you have to keep in mind that accomplished for a junior is accomplished for a junior. Like, don't in your brain think, well, they don't have these things, so they're in the 70s, because I know what a senior in college sounds like as comparatively. So I think we all know that, but sometimes I still get that question from people. Just remember the group that you're judging. And are they developing advanced or accomplished based on junior, lower high school, upper high school, advanced, emerging professional, whatever it is. But don't try to judge a high schooler against an upper college student.
That was actually
how you're in your brain with numbers.
I was going to ask about the word mastery as relates to the age group, because that word is sort of, stigmatized.
I think that's totally fair, right? And we're judging against our own idea of what a developing junior, an advancing junior, and an accomplished junior is, or a developing college student, advancing college student, and accomplished college student is.
Yeah. And you've done a good job finding judges that know the categories that they're judging. So this isn't a huge concern, but just so that people know you're not scoring this against what you imagined the cast recording sounded like.
Yes. Our jobs would be a lot harder if we all were judging cast recordings of singers. Alrighty. Okay, I'm going to move on to our classical rubric just so that we can see it. It is very similar in spirit. Oops, here we go. Again, I'm going to find this at our website under the adjudicators page. Here's our classical rubric. I'm going to zoom in for us. So as you can tell on the top here, we're missing all of those like disclaimers about tone and belt and mix and what all these and legit and what those descriptions means. That is not to say that we believe that, or Nats believes that judging classical is any less convoluted, but just that we haven't necessarily had enough as much time to sort of develop a common vocabulary around those terminology for classical categories. All right, so we have our standards here and then our scoring over here. Tone, breathing and alignment, language and diction, musicianship, artistry and expression, and ensemble. Something I forgot to mention for the last rubric, but this ensemble part where we don't actually give it a numerical score. We don't factor it into our numerical score. This is going to be particularly challenging this year in the virtual world because we have singers that are trying to like match to a track, and some will have less familiarity to that track. That's not something that this is exactly what this is for, that it's ensemble with their track perhaps, and we're not factoring that into our scoring, so I hope that that's fairly clear. So we have developing, advancing, and accomplished. Again, this numerical score is only going to be factored, at the bottom here as an average of all of those categories. If you're like me and you like to judge by keeping notes, I actually print out my rubric and I'll just like make a little note as I go for each of these: tone, breathing, language, diction, and then depending on my notes, I'll make an average score. Okay. Questions about classical adjudication? Look at this. We are breezing through this evening. Perhaps all of us are getting a little bit more comfortable judging online. I know some of us have probably judged for Julie's New England region last year, so that's probably given us a little bit more confidence. Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't see any mutes unmuting. So we're going to move on to our newest rubric, Jazz and CCM. And I'm going to invite Noel to kind of talk to us a little bit about considerations to make. And while I do that, here I'm going to share with our Jazz CCM. So this is labeled the CCM Contemporary Commercial Music rubric. We borrowed this from Cal Western, they've had their division that includes, they're called CCM, but it includes jazz within it. So know that this is meant to apply to jazz adjudication as well as CCM, even though we have separated that in our title as jazz and CCM in order to honor the amazing amount of jazz teachers we have in Boston. Oops, that's probably too big. Here we go. The same kind of vocabulary qualifications have been laid out here as musical theater. So we have belt, mix, and legit. And then we have the scoring on the y-axis or x-axis. So again, tone, breathing and alignment, language and diction are going to correspond, whoops, I keep doing that, to these numbers that you will see in your form. And then you will be able to make an averaging score from 70 to 100. All right, Noel. Thoughts, wisdom, share away.
Yeah. So this division's a little bit different than musical theater, and just so you know, I'm on the national committee, and we're redoing our national rubric for contemporary commercial music, and we've been talking a lot about raw emotion in singing pop, and the lyrics and stylisms and authentic performances and rhythm and groove. So you know, this rubric says no sound is off limit. You can hear vocal fry, you know, you can hear the onsets, you can hear breathy tone, you can hear things that traditionally we may not have heard at the Nats Boston musical theater competition. So I think because it says no sound is off limits, you have to accept sounds that you may not be comfortable hearing, although they need to be appropriate for the song they're choosing. So we're looking for a unique, authentic approach to their songs that they've sung. They may be singing the same style for all 2 or 3 of their songs. They may be choosing different styles. So whatever they're singing, we're looking to see if it's authentic, if the stylisms that they're doing are appropriate for what they're singing, whether it's R&B or jazz or pop or singer-songwriter. I think some of the students are singing their own songs, so that becomes even more difficult. But again, it's their authentic performance, and are they feeling the groove? Are they believing the words, which is really, you know, the words for the song, not the story of the character in a show, but the story within that song. Are they convincing you? And I think sometimes breathing is going to be loud. You know, if it's an emotional breath, tone may be breathy, tone may be a little harsh, twangy. So you have to just be open to hearing new things, but then think about it. Is it appropriate for the song, for the age that they're at, and for the style of singing they're doing? Does that help, Kayla?
That's very enlightening, and I really appreciate your take on this, and also the work that you're doing on the national level to bring clarity to a common language that we can use to adjudicate non-classical, non-musical theater genres, right? Especially when we have such a wide-ranging genre umbrella that we're judging within, right? So this includes jazz, this includes rock, this includes pop, right? Singer-songwriter, folk singing, right? This is a lot of different sounds to kind of compare and contrast. And again, we are not comparing a jazz singer to a pop and rock singer, right? We are comparing the jazz singer to this rubric. Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Right. You also may see some singers that are using microphones. You may see singers that are not using microphones. So we're not judging on mic technique. We haven't developed. I mean, at some point you'll see a new rubric, but for now, it's really against the song that they're choosing and judging against this rubric, which is, it's pretty good. I mean, it's a little theater looking to me now that I've worked on the contemporary music rubric, but it's all in there. And if they're just developing, if they're mastering that technique, or if they're killing it and they did a great job and they're 11 years old, it's against this rubric, which is pretty clear.
Thank you so much, Noel. I really appreciate that. Do we have any questions? I'm going to stop the share. You know where to find it if you're curious. I see Hannah has a question, just a general question. How will everything differ for those of us in the adjudication mentorship program? Hannah, this is such a good question. Can I put a pin in it just for a second, and we'll wrap up CCM and jazz adjudication, and then we'll come back to Nats mentorship, SNATS. Any questions about our new category? How excited! Like, I am just beyond thrilled that we're doing this, and beyond thrilled of the engagement that we have seen. We don't have we don't have full categories yet, but they're going to grow, and I see the potential here. Not only that, but our membership has the opportunity to expand into our jazz, pop, rock colleagues, because there's something for their students to participate in and to do. And I think this is just going to expand our network and our community in a way that honors the work of all of our teachers. So thank you. Julie,
and we did have some participants.
No, we added
every category. So
yeah.
even all the new ones had participants.
Yeah, and we're adding it at the regional level too. So the hope is that by having all the states around us also seeing it, because I think Boston is the only chapter that has ever done CCM. Like, we did it years ago, then we dropped it, now we're bringing it back. None of the other chapters do it. They only do classical and musical theater. So the hope is that at the regional level, by bringing this in, maybe it'll start changing the wheels in those chapters as well. So we'll see. It's a trial year, right?
Yes, and I know they're listening. I know the Nats leadership is eager to hear of the success of this, and how it grows and kind of ripples through our community, and what this means for the voice teachers, like Julie, right? Julie Kinschek, you've performed and taught in this area, and now your students have a place to be within the Nats family. So thank you so much for submitting them, really.
Kayla, okay. I can just reiterate that we're super excited on the national level. We are churning out our CM rubric really fast. We're going to give sound samples of fry and riff and cry and growl, and we're going to throw it all in there, throw it on the website. So we have full support of the national folks. So we're very excited.
Yay! Change is a-comin'. Thank you for being on the cutting edge of it, and for all the work that ensues on making those changes occur. Okay, well, we're going to move on now to something very near and dear to me, and this is Hannah's question, and then we'll go into the resources that Dr. Shannon Coates is going to share with us. Hannah asks about the adjudication mentorship program. So the student Nats, which we are starting to form. Is AG on this call? I don't want to speak out of turn. Okay, I don't think so. So AG Mura is our board member who is spearheading this effort. But what we're doing is we're creating a Nats Boston student Nats a student Nats chapter for Boston. This is getting ridiculous. Our acronyms need some help, but here we go. So if you're curious about what a SNATS is, or a student Nats, it's somebody who has either a student membership or is part of a SNATS chapter, which just stands for the Students of the National Association of Teachers of Singing. Woo, that's a title. So what we do have here in Boston is an incredibly Theodora is here. Yes, Theodora, yes to the formation of Boston Snats. So Theodora is helping on the student end spearhead that effort. And that's basically the goal is that all of the local student Nats can get together and network with each other. So that means that BOCO Snats, BU Snats, NEC Snats, Longy Snats, all of those different Snats chapters that may or may not currently exist can come together under one umbrella under the Boston Snats and be supported by our chapter, the Boston Nats. And then part of what that is being an adjudication mentee who is paired with a mentor, and all the Snats members that have signed on to be a mentee will get their division information with the links. You will go through the same judging process, and then you will meet after the adjudication window with your mentor and just have a debrief and say, this is what I heard, this is how I scored, how did you do it? And can I learn anything from what you heard? And the judge can say, can I learn anything from what you heard, right? And then kind of compare notes after the adjudication window is complete. So that's after the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you're going to take just like an hour, pick some standouts to kind of debrief, and then you'll have a conversation. Hopefully you'll make an actual connection with a teacher that you can speak to on a regular basis, and maybe meet for coffee when it is safe to do so. Questions about that? Thank you for our SNATS mentors and also our mentees who have signed on for that program. I'm really excited about that. Okay.
Did you see Teresa's comment in the chat?
Here we are. I'm seeing it now. Yes, Teresa.
I'm sorry to go back. I was waiting for the right time and then I missed my window. I wanted to clarify between the 1 to 5 check offs and the number at the end. So like if I guess I just want clarification for how I'm thinking of it. So if I'm like, okay, this person is advanced, so they're in the 90 to 100 range, I could still give them a 2 based on that range. Like, well, this is an area that they need to be working on. Or are we using that 1 to 5 thing to help us come up with where we are with the final number? And then how is it seen by this? Like, what's the end point? Like, how does that information get processed for the end, for the actual judging and being revealed to the students?
This is a great question. Thank you so much for bringing this up. Okay, so for the 1 through 5, you can consider this like, if you're familiar with the term, a Likert scale, where it's kind of like it's supposed to be a spectrum, right? So if you're viewing the CCM rubric and you believe that their tone is an 80 to an 89, somewhere in the middle, then you'd probably rank them somewhere between a 2 and a 4, right? If you believe that they're in somewhere in the 70 through 79, we're probably going to be 1 and 2, and 90 and 100, you're probably going to be 4 and 5. And then this allows you to parse out that there may be like a 2 in vocal tone quality, but like a 5 in breathing and alignment. Man, they've got that together, right? And then you kind of make an average, and then by the end of it, those scores should kind of show you where the total average will be for each of these categories. Teresa, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I still also am just curious what the endpoint is for how it's processed at the end for the kids.
So what will happen is we will each participant, because you label the form with their name, each participant will have their form direct, like just as you submitted it, downloaded. We will save it as a PDF and send it to their teacher. And then it is going to be up to the teachers to disseminate appropriately the commentary that they have received. And this comes up fairly regularly every year. If there is a comment that is like, woo, way out of left field, like please, by all means, email Liz and I. And you can even like hold that form back for a little bit, and maybe we can like work something out.
Yeah.
Before
But then,
having to share that.
That's awesome. No, I agree. That's great. And so that'll happen like way after the fact. But as far as like the rankings and the finalists and all of those things, somebody is processing these, and are they going by the
number,
the single number?
The single
and so it's
number.
like the highest 3 numbers in that category.
Yep, it's
average between the judges.
Right, it's going to be average between the judges. It is that single number, and not every category is going to have all 3 finalists, depending on the number of participants in the category. If we have under enrollment in a category, we might only have 1 finalist, we might only have 1 honorable mention, and prizes will be awarded as such. So it's not going to look cookie cutter, first place, second place, third place for every division. It just can't, because we had one division that we needed to separate into 2 because we had 73 participants in it, and no way are we going to do that to you judges. Maximum, what's our biggest one that we're giving to judges, Liz? 30?
High 30s.
Yeah, it's still a lot, but you have 10 days. You have 10 days. We couldn't make it fair and still have it. I don't know what to do next year. We're going to need to find new divisions to make up. So thank you all for submitting students, and now you have to deal with the fact that you all submitted students and we have to judge large categories. Alrighty. Anything else before we move on to our etiquette portion? Dr. Shannon Coates has lots of resources to share with us. All right.
Yes. Hi.
Yes.
Just to clarify for myself, when the form is generated before we work with the timer, we're to put the name of the artist and all their pieces.
You can, or you can fill it in as you listen.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
As long as it's the same every time, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Control. Okay. We're going to move on. Thank you, Dr. Shannon Coates. Take it away.
Woohoo! So yeah, you don't have to call me doctor every time. Although I appreciate it. Especially in light of, I won't get political. Here we go. So, but also I'm Canadian, so it's fine. Do what you gotta do. So thank you so much, Kayla, for asking me to come and do this. It's a real pleasure. And it's kind of fun to sit in on the planning and from another chapter. So I am the past president of the Nats Ontario chapter, so up here in Canada. And yes, we went online as past president. We have a mandate. So I was president for 4 years, and then we have a mandate to stay on for a year to help the transition process. So I was on all of the committees and everything as well. And yeah, it's actually very exciting to be able to offer things online, especially in Ontario. It's huge, and so we had lots and lots of folks up from way up north who are like 12-15 hour drive to get to Toronto, who would never normally be able to have students in the auditions, and who did. So it was really, really thrilling, yeah, to be able to offer the online experience. So some of the things that that you've been talking about already today, I just wanted to kind of give another perspective, and then one of the things that has been really useful in terms of, for myself, but also for the people that I've worked with, in terms of making that audition, or making the adjudication experience great for your students and for you. So before I go there, let me just say one thing in terms of framing when we're sorry, and I'll say one other thing as well about the kind of culture in Canada, where we have like every little tiny town in Canada has its own music festival, like every single one. So there are thousands and thousands of festivals every single year with adjudications and categories similar to the Nats auditions. And as well as we have the Royal Conservatory of Music system that is very well ensconced with our voice teachers. So in my town alone, I'm about 45 minutes north of Toronto. I'm in a relatively large city north of Toronto. So in my town alone, within an hour's driving, and that's not including going to Toronto, I mean, just within an hour's driving, my students can participate in 6 or 7 festivals every year. So they could, if they want to. So they have the opportunity. There are 2 just in my town, and then they can also do ORMTA, which is music association, and they can do NATS. So there's tons and tons of that. Plus they can also then get feedback on their singing through the Royal Conservatory of Music examinations. So there's a real tradition in Canada around adjudication and around sending your students to sing in festivals, and around that whole idea of having a festival where you go and you sing and you get this adjudication. So having said that, I have myself sung in many, many festivals as I was growing up and doing all of the thing as we go along, but also have had, I'm sure it must be thousands of adjudications by this point back to me from my students who have been in festivals. It must be thousands now. So I have had the experience, as have I'm sure some of you as well, I've had the experience of getting those adjudications back and not having a good experience, where the student, first of all, the student feels like they're being called out for doing something wrong. And where I then also, as the teacher, get a little bit of a jolt of like, wow, this person really thinks I don't know what I'm doing. That's interesting. So, and then if you've got any imposter syndrome at all, that really kicks in when you read that, and who doesn't have a little imposter syndrome, let's be honest, but that really kicks in when you read something on an adjudication sheet that sounds like the adjudicator thinks that you don't know what you're doing. So even if the information is really good, so even if it's technically correct, even if they're telling you something where the information is great, that tone that it's delivered in can be really devastating. And it can have an effect not only on you as the teacher, but it can have an effect on the student, obviously with them, with their own ideas of whether or not they can sing, but also on the relationship between you and the student, when the student somehow gets the impression from that adjudication that maybe you're not a very good teacher. So there's lots of ramifications for tone and for the way how we parse things on our adjudication sheets. So having been the recipient of some of those not so great adjudications, my sort of mantra as in festivals has always been, if I don't have to do any damage control, that's a good festival. That's a great adjudicator if I don't have to do any damage control post-festival or post-adjudication. And so some of the things that I have done over the year, and of course, I've started to do, I've done a lot of adjudicating myself as I started to, teach more and have more experience. And also I love adjudicating, so it's super fun. It combines all of my favorite things. I get to be in festivals. In Nats auditions, we don't get to talk to the students, but in festivals, we get to talk to the students, and there's a whole captive audience right there. Parents, students, teachers, it's my favorite. I get to talk about voice ped. Like I get to talk about singing, and I get to talk to young singers, and couldn't be better. So I love it. So these are some of the things that I have sort of gathered over the years, and obviously the rubric that you have is that NATS has and is developing is really spectacular, because it gives you almost objective, right? Like it's almost objective. I think it's as objective as we can be as listeners and as voice teachers. I think it's about as objective as we can be, where we've got this information and a whole bunch of sort of checklists almost about what to think about as we're listening. So that's fantastic. And apart from having a rubric, having something in the back of your head where when you're listening to a singer, you are thinking to yourself, this singer is taught by my most esteemed colleague or mentor. So just kind of try that on for size and have in the back of your head, or think to yourself, who's my most esteemed colleague or mentor? And if you're listening then with that in the back of your mind, even if you don't know, even if you don't happen to know whether that, let me go back 5 seconds. There's something that we don't always acknowledge, I think, as voice teachers, and that's the fact that our entire growing up, especially at my age, our entire high school and learning trajectory was done within the realm of basically classical singing or classical training. So in the studio when I started taking voice lessons when I was 12. So when my whole teenage studio, that was almost everybody was doing classical singing. I mean, I think we did the, Lloyd Webber Pia Jesu. That was really, that was our non-classical, right? Like we really went out far on that one, and maybe a little bit of like Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals. So we basically did classical singing, and I heard classical singing or classical Western art music singing. And I heard that at festivals. And when I went to high school, there was no such thing as a show choir back then. I didn't hear and our music, we did the Fantastics in high school and Carnival. I don't know. Anyway, so we did great musicals, but there wasn't really rock musicals. Boy, am I ever aging myself. I'm sorry, I'm really not that old, but it's truly music theater and contemporary sounds have come a long way and are far more present in our training systems today than they were even 30 years ago. So 20 years ago, maybe. So what we heard as we were growing up and as we were coming into, and then I went into an undergraduate program in vocal performance. So I heard young singers developing all the way along the trajectory to professional in classical style. So I know when I'm teaching and when I'm listening to a young classical singer, I know what the trajectory sounds like. I know what it sounds like to be a young developing singer and to get to, so I know what it sounds like to hear a pressed baritone get to a great baritone. I know what it sounds like to hear an overly bright, squeezed, too forward soprano get to a beautifully resonant soprano sound. I know what it sounds like to hear a mezzo, a young mezzo trying to sound like they're 80 years old, get to a really nice balanced mezzo. I know what that sounds like because I grew up with it and I grew up hearing that, and I watched my colleagues and myself develop into that. I did not have that same experience listening to, and the folks of my generation and a little younger as well, didn't have the same experience listening to those sounds in a developing music theater or contemporary singer. So I don't necessarily know what that, I mean, I do now, but I didn't know when I first started to listen to young singers, I didn't know what the trajectory was from a pressed music theater or a pressed belt or an overly strident belt, or even a breathy, legit sound. Like I didn't know how that trajectory worked, and it just sounded all bad and all unhealthy. It just sounded all like, whoa, what's happening there? Because that's not a good sound, right? I know from my classical training that that's not a good sound. And I didn't know what the trajectory was. So that's something to keep in mind. I think what you were talking about as well, Noel, talking about when you're listening to the sounds in styles that you didn't necessarily grow up in, even if you're teaching them now, but the sounds that you don't necessarily have that understanding of what the trajectory is going to be. So it's something just to keep in mind. And what happens then when we think to ourselves, okay, this student is being taught by my most respected colleague or mentor. So then that sound, even if our first reaction to the sound is, whoa, something bad happening here, we aren't going to write it down as like, wow, you really have to be careful about blah, blah, blah. We're going to write that, we're going to start to think about that sound as this is a trajectory. And obviously they're being taught by my favorite mentor. Therefore, that person has heard that sound, and therefore they're actually on a good track, and that person is working with them to develop that track. So what happens when we sort of think in that in those terms, it changes the way that we observe. It changes us in sort of three ways in our adjudications. It changes the way we observe the singer, right? It removes the judgment from our observations of the singer. It gives us so much more ability to have grace when we hear the singer, because again, we go like, okay, wow, that was really out of tune, but obviously my mentor has heard it, and obviously they're working on it. So I don't have to comment on in the same way, right? So that changes the way that it also changes, it changes the things that I choose to comment on as well. And it changes the way that I comment on them. So rather than saying, you really need to work on your tuning, which presumes that the teacher has never heard them sing out of tune before, or somehow has missed that they're singing out of tune, we start to couch the language in continue to do X, Y, Z, so that the tuning becomes, so that you're on the road to having that secure tuning in this bar, whatever, or you're farther along the road to having that secure tuning. So you start to use words like continue to work on. You start to, when you suggest, if you do happen to suggest an exercise or say, it becomes a, have you tried blah, blah, blah yet? Rather than, you should do this, right? It takes all of that kind of prescriptiveness out of the adjudication, and it assumes then the support that we all want to feel from our colleagues, of course. It assumes the support for the teaching that you're already doing, and it gives the student then as well, and if they read their comments, it gives the student then the sense that my teacher is fantastic because all of this other teacher thinks they're fantastic too. We get this really great relationship development within the community and with our singers. So the singers never feel like, wow, I wish I wasn't studying with that person because they clearly don't know what they're talking about. Exciting. Let me make sure that I've got my work here. Yeah, and that also then to, when we hear, for example, we hear a singer who is singing repertoire that perhaps isn't appropriate, perhaps it's above their level of singing, perhaps it's, a subject matter that maybe isn't appropriate for them to sing, or in our opinion, or perhaps it is, it's not suited to their voice or their voice type or whatever. I mean, there are lots of, again, that comes back to then us, rather than saying, and I've seen this on adjudications, I've literally seen people write just the worst things on adjudications out of perhaps the goodness of their heart, trying to show that, trying to help out. But saying you shouldn't be singing this is not helpful on an adjudication. It's really not. But when you do hear, so what thinking to yourself, okay, this person is actually studying with my favorite mentor, then assumes that the reason that person is singing it is a reason that you don't know, and it's under control. It's fine, right? And so then you are able to write things like, I would love to hear this repertoire when in like a decade, when you can really get it in your voice, or I don't know, you're able to write even very beautiful, supportive comments that then don't take away from that teacher and from the relationship that the student has with the teacher. I think that's likely where I'm going to stop, Kayla. If there's, I think just having that in mind.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective of trusting the teacher that is submitting the student and viewing them as your most respected mentor or colleague. This ties in very deeply to the first thing that I said at the beginning of this meeting, if you missed it, was that I hope that this increases our community togetherness, right? And builds our relationships. And we cannot build our relationships if we do not behave as if we trust our colleagues and actually build trust in our colleagues. So thank you so much for sharing that perspective with us, Shannon. It's so valuable, especially not just from hearing it within our community, but from adjacent to our community up north is really helpful. I'd love to open the floor for questions for you if there are any. And other than that, after questions, we'll kind of pause the recording and then maybe just chat for a little bit if you want to hang out. Any questions for Shannon as we wrap up for this evening? Comments are welcome as well.
I'll make a comment, Shannon. I think that was brilliant. I love that mental image, which is amazing. I find that a lot of times I think about a positive sandwich and think about, two positives and then and keep working on blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Because I know when my students come back, if it's all things to work on, they get a little disheartened, even though they've done very well, but I did well, but I have all of this. So I think it's important to keep that positivity going.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that with us. It was great.
Yeah, another idea or something that I have found useful is to actually have a kind of template of like, that was a sincere performance, that was a thrilling performance, that was an authentic performance, and sincere covers a lot of, like, it really covers a multitude of sins, right? That was a sincere performance really covers a lot. So something just like a whole bunch of sentences like that, beside you as you're adjudicating, so you can end all of your adjudications with thank you for a sincere, thank you for a well-prepared performance, thank you for your all of those kinds of sentences. So they're just right there at your fingertips, and you can just throw it in. And obviously it needs to be authentic, but like I said, a sincere performance covers a lot if you need something.
Thank you so much. Teresa says thank you for your insight and sharing your experience in the chat. Any other questions, comments?
I would also just comment that depending on who you're judging, also, I know we always are positive, but what I always think of is if I'm judging juniors in high school, I tend for that sandwich to have a lot more positive and just a couple constructive criticisms, because they're such babies and you don't know how long they've been taking lessons and you don't know their situation, and I'm that way. Even lower college, sometimes I'll throw a little bit more positive than constructive stuff. I will argue with myself that yes, in upper college, and especially because I do a lot of judging in musical theater, upper college, I don't do a lot of advanced, but I would also argue in advanced or emerging professional, I think you got to throw them a couple more things. If there's some things, I mean, we don't want to be negative talk. I don't want the word pitchy ever to be used again. There's too much drama surrounding that word. It's not a good word to use in adjudication. But there are times when with the upper division kids, yes, still put the sandwich together, like Noel says, never leave them hanging. But you can go a little bit deeper. But I would argue that let's be as gentle and positive and kind as we can be with our younger students, especially those baby juniors.
Oh, I agree. I get in trouble regularly at the festivals for giving the 6 and 7-year-olds. They all get first prize. Sorry, you're 7 and you came to the festival. You all get first prize. Nobody wins. Everybody wins. Sorry, nobody loses. Everybody wins. That's obviously way young, but yeah, I agree.
I mean, especially in this climate, right, where we are working really hard to get these submissions in. I don't know about you, but my students are dealing with an entirely new kind of mental game called listen to yourself 100 times, record this song, and know to the beat how well prepared you really are. And oh gosh, it's a whole new deck of cards to record, and have the brave audacity to click submit on that form is something new than just like, hey, I'm here in this room and I'm only gonna sing it once for you and then I'm out the door, right? So please be kind, be kind.
And there is a magnitude of research that tells us that we listen differently live than we do to a recording. We listen much differently live. We forgive so much more live than we do in a recording, even if it's a live recording. Just the mere fact that we're not in the room with them and we're watching and listening, yeah.
To that end, Kayla, maybe we should talk a little bit about quality of recordings that will be coming in. I know that some of my students just took a piano track that I might have recorded for them, I don't know, 3 months ago, probably has the vocal line in it, and they decided to go ahead and submit to Nats, and I didn't even know. So, and others, you know, have a great recording and whatever. So I think we're going to find a huge discrepancy in quality that's coming in, and we need to be careful that we're not judging based on that. We've got to kind of listen through all of that, right?
It's true. And as somebody who I'm a lab manager for New England Conservatory's it's a voice and sound analysis lab. Like, I live and breathe microphone technology so that we can get like the best recordings possible of our subjects. That being said, just know that every single microphone you put in front of a student, whether it's this kind of microphone that's a reference microphone, supposed to be super, super accurate, flat response, to my MacBook microphone, it's going to change my sound, right? We all know this when we hear ourselves in recordings in different rooms and with different microphone qualities. And this access question of, could we possibly even make all of our students have equitable resources? And the answer is not at this time. We cannot at this time. I would love to live in a world where that is true, but we cannot. So with that being said, yes, Noel, we do our best, our absolute best, to listen through any challenges that are apparent due to the technology. And if you have a comment about the technology, I would save it. I would save it and keep it for keep on track of commenting regarding the performance, commenting regarding the singing as best as you can. And there is no need to say, your audio equipment could be improved, because the truth is we do not know the financial circumstances that has brought any of our students to where they are today. So that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. So true.
Any other questions? I see Teresa made a comment. If I may just read it, I think it's important if that's okay. Teresa says, I think it's so important to remember that students are doing this as a step to check in and have an opportunity to get better. They need encouragement that they are doing good, hard work, and can move forward. Right. I mean, the hope is that they return next year, having experienced a whole nother year of voice lessons, and that they will check in again next year. Not that they have this like critical moment of feedback that either makes or breaks them, right? We're not going to do that to our juniors and our emerging professionals. None of those categories. Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns? You will receive your email at 9 or 10. Did I say 10 a.m.? 9 a.m.? 9? Liz, how?
10.
10 a.m. How early are we waking up, right? 10 a.m. With your 3 things. You're going to have your list of your video submissions that you're in charge of adjudicating over the next 10 days. You're going to have your link to your adjudication Google form, which you will fill out 1 per participant. And you will have the rubric that we have gone over today in our meeting. And with that, I'm going to press stop on this recording, and we can talk to each other in this room until you have to go.